Okay, we're going to continue reading in Echo today, and we're going to read 12 and 13. So if you have your questions out in front of you, okay, and be listening for some answers. Christmas Eve didn't feel the same without Fernando, who had always insisted they drink hot chocolate and eat cookies and stay up until midnight to open presents. Ivy sat between Mama and Papa on the sofa, the three of them indulging his tradition yet feeling his absence. Papa held up his cup of cocoa. Merry Christmas. Mama and Ivy raised theirs and repeated Merry Christmas. Mama reached over and adjusted his high school photograph a tiny bit to the left and back to the right. And to Nando, she said, we miss you. He is with us in spirit, said Papa, and I have a surprise for both of you. He pulled 2 envelopes from behind his back. Letters? Asked Ivy. They came this morning, said Papa. I happened to be out front when the mailman arrived. I saved them as a surprise. Ivy took the letter addressed to her. Mama clutched the other to her chest. Even in the dim light, Ivy could see Mama's eyes glistening as she opened it and smoothed out the paper. She held the letter close to the lamp and read aloud. Dear Mama and Papa, I'm sorry I haven't written for so long. In advanced training, we have not been able to send mail, only receive it. I guess they don't want any of our radio secrets to leak out. Loose lips sink ships. That means if we talk without censoring our words, the information could fall into the enemy's hands and make things dangerous for other soldiers. I received Papa's letter yesterday. A house in Orange County? Well, that is something. It sounds like a good deal all around. It will be nice to come home once and for all. I want to put down roots. Here is my news. I am now a certified field radio operator. I can take apart a radio and put it back together faster than anyone in my unit, and I get reception when others cannot. My new nickname is Mars Lopez. My buddies tease that I can reach another planet on the radio if I set my mind to it. Papa laughed. Mars Lopez, that is fitting. The other news is that I have finally received my orders. I will be going over soon on a military air transport. Going over? To where? Asked Ivy. He is not allowed to say, said Papa. Go on, Luce. You know those planes with the big bellies? I will be inside one of them. I do not know the exact day, only that it will be within a few weeks. The talk here is that this war cannot last too much longer. Even the officers say so. Mama looked up from the letter. Even the officers say the war will be over soon? Papa smiled and squeezed her hand as she continued reading. They show us newsreels every week, and we see how Americans all over the country are doing their part, big and small, for the war. I feel proud to be doing mine. With much love, your son, Fernando. So the first question we have for this section is, why hadn't Fernando been able to send mail? So he was able to get it, but he wasn't able to send it. Why? Okay, why did it say earlier? And then, what does loose lips sink ships mean? And he was talking about how they couldn't, if they said too much, they could give away information that the enemy could use against them. So loose lips means you're talking too freely. And the ships could be the Navy, right? What does Fernando mean by, I want to put down roots? What does it mean if you want to put down roots? I think about a tree. A tree is putting down its roots, and when it has roots, it doesn't move. So he wants to be somewhere where he stays and doesn't move around. Okay. If the war ends soon, then next Christmas he will be with us, said Mama. Papa cleared his throat. Yes, I predict that the new year will be even better. In 2 weeks, Mr. Yamamoto's son will come to sign the papers. I will attend the meetings to see what might be done about Ivy's school. By the time this war is over, we will have, Papa's voice cracked, our own house for Fernando to come home to. Yes, next year will be promising. While Mama and Papa huddled together and reread the letter, Ivy opened hers and read silently. Dear Ivy, I just received your letter. I am sorry you had to miss your performance on the radio. I hope you will play the solo for me when I come home. But it sounds like good things are coming for all of us once this war is over. Every battalion has a motto. Brave in difficulties, our utmost forever, ready in peace and war. My battalion's motto is forward to defend the truth. Let's do that in our family, too. I am counting on you to be a good little soldier and march forward. I hope you are still playing harmonica. What I wouldn't give for one of your concerts now. Over. In radio lingo, that means I finished talking and I'm waiting to hear what the person on the other end has to say. And that is you. Love, Nando. P.S. Remember how you were saving war stamps in Fresno? My sergeant said a 10-cent war stamp will buy 5 bullets, and each bullet will stop a Nazi. The truth is, the sooner we stop them, the sooner the war will be over, and I'll be home. At the bottom of the piece of paper, Fernando had taped a penny. Ivy held up the letter to show Mama and Papa and smiled. For a concert. It was just after midnight. She kissed Mama and Papa good night and left the letter with them so they could read it too. She went to her room and stood at the window, gazing into the shadows in the orange grove. She raised the harmonica and played the Battle Hymn of the Republic for Fernando, the lyrics resounding with his pride and love and dedication. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Okay, Nando, she whispered, forward to defend the truth. She sat on her bed and wrote him a letter. She told him about Lincoln Maid and Lincoln Annex, their decision to stay in Orange County instead of going back to Fresno, the orchestra, Mr. Daniels, and flute lessons, and how she hoped everything worked out so that he could come home and put down roots. She assured him she was being a good little soldier and that he could keep counting on her. She signed her letter without mentioning the 2 obstacles to her. She signed her letter without mentioning the 2 obstacles to her family's future. One was that Kenny Yamamoto and Papa still had to sign the papers. If Kenny Yamamoto wasn't pleased with what he saw when he came home, he might not sign. That was something Ivy could fix. The other obstacle was like a sliver in her finger that never stopped throbbing. If the Yamamotos were spies, they would go to prison and their farm would be sold. In that case, what would happen to her own family? Susan had said the only way to prove the Yamamotos weren't spies was to inspect their house. Hadn't Papa mentioned they needed to do that very thing anyway? If Ivy could get inside and confirm there was nothing suspicious, she could tell Susan, who could tell her father, and that would be the end of all the spy talk. But how and when could she get inside? Okay. 13. The day after Christmas, Ivy realized she had the perfect opportunity. She and Mama were kneeling side by side on a folded blanket in front of an overgrown flower bed, prying up iris bottoms. With a trowel, Ivy dug up a dirt-encrusted clump and tossed it into a pile on a piece of burlap. What colors are they? Mama considered one. They will have to bloom for us to know. I'm hoping for purple with yellow tongues. Those are my favorite. What will you do with the ones we take out? Asked Ivy. They are easy to transplant. I will keep some for the side of the house, and I will give some to Mrs. Ward. The rest I'm not sure. Mama, I want to plant some at the owner's house. Everything there looks so drab. Ivy, what a good idea. I wish I had thought the same. Maybe by the time they take root and flower, the family will be back to enjoy them. We can take these over and store them in the shed until I can plant them. And then, nonchalantly, Ivy added, Oh, and Papa said we needed to check inside the house. We could do it while we are there. Yes, said Mama. I promised Papa I'd do that, but have not had the chance. Since he's gone to town buying supplies this afternoon, we might as well go over. She stood and brushed off her apron. I will get the keys to the shed and the house. Before they started through the grove, Mama grabbed a handful of clothespins from the line to pin up the blackout curtains and let in some light. The electricity is not on. Ivy heard Susan's warnings. If you do go inside, be careful because it might be booby-trapped or rigged with bombs to protect their spy stuff. Ivy didn't believe it and was ready to prove the Yamamotos were not spies. But still, should she tell Mama what Susan had said, just in case? By the time Ivy had bundled the iris bottoms in the burlap, Mama was halfway through the grove. Ivy hurried after her to the Yamamoto's yard. When she caught up, Mama had opened the shed and was heading toward the back door. She laid the bundle on the dirt floor of the shed and quickly made her way to the house, deciding to warn Mama about the booby traps. But she wasn't fast enough. Mama had already unlocked the back door and now stood in a perfectly ordinary kitchen that did not look one bit like it belonged to spies. Ivy took a deep breath, relieved. "Now," said Mama, pinning up a corner of the blackout curtain on the kitchen window, "we need to look inside every closet and cupboard." "For mouse droppings or leaking water or bird and squirrel nests," said Ivy. "Papa told me." Mama put her hands on her hips. "It is sad, no? The last time Kenneth Yamamoto left his house, his family was here." She shook her head. "Imagine how difficult it will be for him to come back to this." The kitchen table looked stark and lonely without a bowl of fruit at its center and the chairs tucked tight to the edges. Had Mr. and Mrs. Yamamoto sat at each end with their children between them? Which seats were Karen's and Annie's? Ivy helped Mama clip up the curtains in the living room. Boarded from the outside, the windows allowed in only slats of light. Furniture had been pushed to the center and covered with sheets, the mountainous shapes erupting like icebergs. The air smelled stale. "Why do they still have blackout curtains if there's no electricity?" asked Ivy. "The curtains were probably required before they were sent away. They were being good Americans. Now, at least if someone pries off the boards on the outside, they will not be able to see inside. When houses are abandoned, people do strange things. They think it is an invitation to steal." Mama inspected each window and moved to the bedrooms. The first had been stripped bare, except for the double-frame mattress. Mama opened a closet door. Adult clothing crowded the pole. On the floor, a radio was pushed into the corner, surrounded by tidy rows of cardboard boxes with words written on the front. Sheets, pillowcases, tablecloths. A row of work boots lined the threshold. It must have been Mr. and Mrs. Yamamoto's room. Mama pulled out a few boxes and carefully looked inside. The next bedroom was much the same, with boxes lining the closet floor, but the shelf held baseball bats and deflated balls that probably belonged to Kenny. In the third bedroom, there were 2 beds where Karen and Annie must have slept. Ivy imagined them there, giggling and whispering secrets in the dark before they fell asleep. The younger one clutching her doll. Mama opened the closet, and a box with no lid toppled. Photos slid across the floor. "Oh, what a mess." "I'll get them, Mama," said Ivy, curious to look at the photos. "Thank you. I'll look through the kitchen cupboards." The sound of Mama's footsteps faded as she walked away. One by one, Ivy stacked the pictures back in the box. There was one of the Lincoln School Orchestra with the Yamamoto girls performing a duet on flutes. They played the flute, too. Ivy turned the photo over. Their names had been written on the back in perfect script. Another picture showed the 2 sisters in matching dresses sitting at a piano. There were lots of baby pictures. A young Kenny playing the violin with the words "Lincoln Spring Concert" written in the white border. Mr. and Mrs. Yamamoto standing on the front steps of the house holding an infant. Kenny and Donald and Tom, arms around one another, holding baseball bats and gloves, grinning. Kenny and Donald in their Marine Corps uniforms, shaking hands. Kenny must have been so sad when his best friend died in the bombs. With each photo, Ivy felt pulled into the Yamamoto's lives and heavy-hearted for all they had lost. She lifted the box back into the closet. She looked for the lid, pushing aside the hanging clothes. That's when she saw a door at the back of the closet. Why would there be a door in a closet? Ivy's imagination raced. Was it an entrance to a secret passageway? Was this the evidence Susan's father was hoping to find? Were the Yamamotos hiding something? Ivy looked up. At the top of the door, a flip latch was padlocked. She shoved some of the clothing farther aside, scooted boxes forward, and found another latch and padlock near the bottom of the door. She took a deep breath. It was probably a storage room, she reasoned. For special things they would not risk leaving out in the house, breakable or precious things. Didn't Japanese people have fancy kimonos? It would make sense to lock them up. After all, Papa said they could take to the camp only what they could hold in their arms. And Mama said that people steal from abandoned houses. It made sense to lock up valuables. Ivy suddenly felt heavy with the burden of responsibility, of knowing about this hidden closet. Should she tell Mama and Papa? She thought she heard a chord like a long exhale. She put her hand on the pocket of her dungarees and felt the harmonica. Had it played on its own? Or had Ivy let out a sigh? Or was she imagining things like Papa always said? Her thoughts skipped. Her family and the Yamamotos were linked. If there was anything suspicious in the closet and it was discovered, both families would be in jeopardy. Ivy was probably the only one outside the Yamamoto family who knew the door was there. And she was good at keeping secrets. She didn't have to tell. It would be her way of helping, of giving her family the chance to march forward together. Ivy arranged the hanging clothes and stacked the boxes in place. Ivy, called Mama, unclip the curtains as you come through the house and pull the back door tight. I will lock the shed and meet you out front. Okay, Mama. Ivy shut the closet door and left the house, acting as though nothing unusual had happened. But as she rounded the corner of the ramshackle garden, she stopped and froze. Mr. Ward's Buick idled on the street at the end of the Yamamoto's drive. Ivy could see Mr. Ward crouching from the driver's seat and peering out the passenger window, as if he'd been watching and waiting. Ivy's heart thudded. He couldn't have known what she had discovered. Or could he? She tried to act innocent and casual as she walked down the drive and waved, but Mr. Ward gunned the motor and sped away. Okay, so some more questions. Is Ivy's main reason for wanting to get in the Yamamoto's house justified? So her main reason is to make sure that they're not spies. And is it justified? She justifies it by saying their futures are linked together, right? Then the next one says, how do you know that the door Ivy found is going to be important? This is more of a question about what a writer is doing. What is the writer doing in this story that's letting you know that this is important? Right? She's so focused on it. And she mentions it several times, and then she sees Mr. Ward and feels watched. So we have this sense that what she sees is important. And then it says, do you think the Yamamotos are hiding something? What do you think? And it says, why did Ivy decide not to tell anyone? Do you think she'll be able to keep her secret? We'll start to see a little bit more of that next. But it says, do you think they're hiding something? I want you to reply in the comments about what do you think is going on? And if you were Ivy, I want you to answer this too. What would you do? Do you think you would keep it a secret and try to convince yourself it's no big deal? Or would you try to tell yourself that even if it is a big deal that you're protecting them? Or would you tell someone because of what you might be afraid of? What do you think you would do if you were Ivy? And do you think it really is a big deal? Okay, we'll continue